Good evening and welcome to this special edition of the latest from 7 News. Tonight, a weather emergency across 2 states with disaster zones declared, hundreds of flood rescues, homes inundated and conditions predicted to deteriorate even further. In New South Wales, all eyes are on the Warragamba Dam in Sydney's west, already spilling 500 gigalitres a day, enough to fill Sydney Harbour. Downriver, thousands are being evacuated as levels rapidly rise and there could be more to come. Upstate, on the mid-north coast, towns remain submerged with the damage bill expected to soar. And southeast Queensland is now facing a flood emergency of its own.
The latest from 7 News with Angela Cox.
We're live to key locations tonight, starting in Windsor, where Robert Avadia is standing by for us. Rob, that community is at serious risk as Warragamba Dam continues to spill into the Hawkesbury River. What's happening there now?
Well, Ange, it is very, very quiet here. The SES has urged people to stay off the roads, which they are doing. It's certainly a lot quieter than it has been throughout the day. This has been quite a spectacle. Hundreds of people coming down here to watch this event. It does not happen too often. Now, you can see behind me the lights are illuminating not the Windsor Bridge because it is underwater, but the water, in fact, engulfing it. The water is actually quite still now. It was really surging yesterday. We've seen those pictures, certainly from the air, of bits of debris banging into the bridge. No longer, much more still, which is a good sign, suggesting that the flow from Warragamba has slowed significantly, and the peak is expected sometime tomorrow morning to be a little under 13 metres, according to the Bureau of Meteorology.
And Rob, you said that earlier today you saw people out and about taking a look at this once-in-a-generation phenomenon. How is everyone there preparing? Are people heeding warnings?
Well, they are, but at the same time, you're dealing with people who are very experienced in this. I think it's well known if you come to a floodplain like Windsor and the surrounds, like Pitt Town and Richmond, you are aware there will be floods. So people have seen this before, maybe not to this extent. It's certainly a novelty for some, but some people who have been living here for years have seen it before. You can only do what you can. That includes sandbagging houses and trying to make them flood-proof, but there is only so much you can do. If the water level is going to rise significantly enough to get into your home, there is really very little you can do other than just hope that the water subsides.
Rob, earlier you were in Penrith. What's the situation with the Nepean River?
Well, the Nepean River, I got there this morning. I was there for a lot of the day yesterday. River Road, which is adjacent to the Nepean River, was cut off by floodwaters. From our vantage point then, it just seemed the road was flooded, but you go to homes along River Road today and it was at least 1 metre high in some garages, and some of those properties are a reasonable height above the banks of the Nepean too. So some garages were trashed. We visited one home today, the Cullens. They lost 3 cars. The electrics weren't working in the car. They had presumed that the cars would be safe. They weren't, unfortunately. So a lot of today along the banks of the Nepean has seen family after family just cleaning out their property and hoping there is not another surge from Warragamba over the coming days. OK,
thanks so much, Rob, for your time. The SES has responded to thousands of calls for help today as floodwaters rapidly rose. In Wyong, an elderly man was brought to safety after becoming trapped in his car. In Western Sydney, livestock owners desperately tried to save their horses. And in Londonderry, pets and people were loaded onto boats and brought to higher ground. Among the grateful, a 5-year-old baby boy in the arms of an SES volunteer, his parents and, 5-month-old, his parents and pet dogs also on board the dinghy. The extreme weather has also caused chaos on our roads. Evan Batten is in Castle Hill tonight. Evan, how dangerous has it been for drivers?
Angela, you'd have to say the word for today on the roads is treacherous. It's a fair description. We're just at Castle Hill on Showground Road here behind me, around the corner from one of the main evacuation centres. And it is pleasing to see at this point that it seems that people are heeding the warnings from authorities that if you don't need to drive on the roads, that you stay at home. Now, earlier today, sadly, we learned that a 66-year-old driver was killed. His Mercedes left Mona Vale Road just before 9 a.m. as he was driving west along Mona Vale Road there at Terry Hills. paramedics tell us when they arrived at the scene there was nothing that could be done to save him. He was pronounced dead at the scene, and police are now trying to work out exactly what caused that, but it could well have been a medical episode, we're told, that he was suffering. However, the road conditions there no doubt will have played some part in that. Police will, as they prepare a report for the coroner to establish, they will be looking very closely at the road conditions and the amount of water that is on the road. Certainly motorists all across town will have noticed on any trip that they've gone on that the number of potholes is increasing, and certainly around Horsley Park there are a number of vehicles that were left paralysed when their tyres were popped. So severe was the condition of the road and the number of potholes that they were hitting. So certainly a real sting to the hip pocket nerve there for those motorists.
I guess that's why we are being told to stay at home if we can, but there are also major concerns about these people that we see driving through floodwaters. We keep being told not to, it's not safe, but there are major concerns and people are still doing it.
How many times have authorities had to repeat those warnings? It seems every time we have a flood they come out and say the same messages again and repeat it throughout the duration of that flood. But today, once again, take a look at these pictures now. We see a motorist. Clearly the roadway is inundated. They can't see the bottom of the roadway at all, and yet still they decide to continue driving along that road. The SES crews are on standby right nearby. I mean, Angela, you can't have emergency tape up around every situation of road flooding. You hope that motorists will use common sense. Thankfully, in this vision, you see that the driver does make it to the other side of the risen floodwaters there and gets a bit of a talking to by the SES crews, because that not only puts the motorist and whatever passengers they might have in their vehicle at danger, but of course it does put the lives of the SES volunteers at risk as well.
Indeed, very frustrating. OK, thanks so much, Evan Batten. On the New South Wales mid-north coast, there have been more evacuations with entire towns inundated by floodwaters. Isabel Mullen is live for us at Coffs Harbour. Izzy, what's the situation there right now?
Well, Ange, it is still raining here in Taree, but residents have been given some reprieve. Just 20 millimetres is expected to fall tonight. Evacuation orders are still in place for much of Taree City and also Taree Estate. Here in Taree, there were 430 calls for help today alone. 150 people had to be rescued from floodwaters. If you can see behind me, the Manning River is below its moderate flood levels, but it has washed up some debris. We've got a bench here and also a shopping trolley. Many people have been caught up in this. We spoke to a couple that have lost some of their livestock. They've lost their homes. They've been through drought, fires and now floods, and they're still managing to keep a smile on their face. Take a listen.
Flood water through our houses, sheds, dairy. We've lost all our fencing. It just rose that quick. It chased us up the road.
We sort of didn't get an evacuation warning either.
We had no evacuation.
So we were already under before we got any warning.
Just lucky we'd seen the river coming up and we just got going as soon as we could. It's devastating, but we'll just keep pushing through it.
Very stoic there, aren't they, Izzy? There have also been extraordinary scenes at supermarkets in that area.
Yeah, there certainly has. There's been some panic buying. I think there's a general feeling of uneasiness here in the mid-north coast. They know more rain is on the way. Tomorrow, 80 millimetres is expected to fall before it stops over Wednesday and Thursday. We've seen shelves emptied, particularly bread and milk, nappies, everyday household items. Coles and Woolworths have both issued statements saying they're doing their absolute best to get these products to the stores. But at the moment, roads are cut, so it really does depend on the rain easing off. Ange?
OK, thanks so much, Isabel. Our reporter Tom Saker has also been on the mid-north coast today. Earlier, he spoke with a very emotional Taree Police Inspector, Christine George, whose home flooded on her birthday. Take a look.
What's it like, being in a situation where, you're obviously so used to helping people and now, I guess you're one of those people?
Oh, I just feel a bit helpless. I'm not normally used to asking anyone for help. So, my staff are amazing. Yeah, my staff have been sending me messages offering to help and everything. And, everyone else around the place. You know, Taree Estate has been hit pretty hard, and I'm hearing other places have too. But you know what? We've been through a flood before. We got through it. The house is still here. The couple, you know, one couple lost their house. My house is still here, so it's got a lot of mud in it, but it'll wash.
Very brave. Now, this weather emergency has now extended to Queensland's southeast. Joel Dry is live at Oxenford on the Gold Coast for us. Joel, what's the situation where you are?
Good evening, Ange. Well, the Coomera River behind me is absolutely raging and the rain continues to be relentless tonight. It is saturating parts of the southeast that have already been inundated by about 36 hours of almost constant rain to this point. The heaviest falls have been experienced in the Gold Coast hinterland. They are recording 24-hour totals that are nudging 300 millimetres of rain. That's an awful lot of water that is washing down the ranges and into the streets. The obvious result has been a lot of flooded roads, dozens here in the Gold Coast, many more also in Brisbane and on the Sunshine Coast. And sadly, people are not heeding the warnings that have been continuous. We are seeing more and more cars drive into those flooded roads and come off second best and need rescuing. Swiftwater rescue crews have been kept very busy. The SES also, some 500 calls for help they have received in the past 3 or so days. The good news is that to this point, the damage has been relatively contained to just street flooding, causeways and also ovals. No real damage recorded in property, save for one very obvious example. There is a large landslip in Wongawallan, not far from where we are tonight, that has left a fairly new home sitting precariously on a newly formed cliff. Its owner and the owners of some homes that are downhill from that have been evacuated, while they and all authorities and everyone really in the southeast waits to see what this weather does tonight.
Extraordinary pictures of that river behind you and the pictures we're seeing of all of that rain, and to have not too much damage so far. What is the advice for locals there as you sort of ride out this bad weather?
Yeah, no damage so far, but there is a lot more rain to come, and as a result, the Premier has really warned people that tonight is not the night to be out all. Be indoors and certainly stay off the road. Sadly, we have had 8 fatal accidents in just the past 3 days since this weather has been with us, and those fatalities have added to an already shocking road toll here in Queensland. One senior police officer today said this is the darkest period he has ever seen in his 30-something years of being a police officer in regards to deaths on the road. And sadly, with all of this rain still to come, there is the real prospect that there will be more accidents and, unfortunately, more deaths on the road here in southeast Queensland. Yeah, well, if it's safe to stay home, that's what people should do. Thanks so much, Joel. So how much longer will the flood crisis across New South Wales and Queensland last? Let's bring in meteorologist Tony Auden in our weather centre. Tony, are conditions expected to intensify over the next few days?
Good evening, Ange. Yes, they are expected to get worse before they get better. Now, today we have still seen that widespread rain all the way from southeast Queensland right down the New South Wales coast. Plenty of it falling, but it's only really been light to moderate rain. Having said that, we're still seeing a large area, so those river catchments haven't really had a chance to empty out just yet. Falls generally 10 to 15 millimetres across much of these areas, the odd heavier fall. But along with that coastal rain, we are seeing a larger system developing further inland, stretching almost 2,000 kilometres into the NT, almost as far as Alice Springs here. As a result, we do have severe weather warnings mentioning heavy rainfall and flash flooding from the NT into South Australia, much of southern Queensland, most of New South Wales, especially the coast, and even into eastern parts of Victoria. That's a population around 10 million people, potentially in the firing line for heavy rainfall and flash flooding in the next day. Now, this is why that inland system is expected to move east, colliding with that humid air mass on the coast, and we're going to see some heavier storms, a bigger chance of heavy rainfall and flash flooding tomorrow. That's these yellow and orange shades here as the system moves across in towards the evening. So, and another big 24 hours ahead. In terms of those, totals, generally 50 to 100 millimetres across much of eastern New South Wales. You can see these totals around Sydney and Brisbane here. We could see some heavier pockets with storms, especially northern New South Wales and the Gold Coast. Some of the modelling hinting at over 200 millimetres there in the next day. So it is well worth keeping an eye on the warnings and keeping off those roads.
Just remarkable. Now, finally, Tony, when's it going to clear?
The all-important question, and thankfully the system that's bringing this increase into tomorrow is set to keep on moving. So as we move into tomorrow evening, rapidly clearing away from Sydney, probably 24 hours from now we'll start to see clear skies. A few lingering storms overnight in Brisbane and southeast Queensland, then that should clear out into Wednesday morning. Behind it, sunshine, drier air, a good chance to clean up, hopefully get those river catchments empty. Here's the Sydney 7-day forecast. Sunshine on Wednesday and Thursday, not much in these showers longer term. It will be mostly dry through the next week. And a similar story for Brisbane and southeast Queensland. Heating up, just those few showers early Wednesday. Sunshine pretty much into the weekend, and much needed sunshine. I'm sure we'll be ready for it from about early Wednesday onwards.
Absolutely. Fingers crossed. Thank you, Tony. Still to come, we're live to SES headquarters in Sydney as more calls come in for help. The cost of a crisis. Finance editor Gemma Acton is here to break down government support and insurance for flood victims. And just hours from its peak, we'll cross back to the Hawkesbury River, where rising waters have residents on edge. That's next on the latest from 7 News.
Nat is leading our special coverage live from the flood zone.
The situation is incredibly volatile.
Get straight up to date as you wake with Sunrise.
Irresistibly smooth chocolate to put the world on pause. Lindor, made to melt you by the Lindt Master Chocolatier.
Introducing Macca's new fruit smoothies with no added sugar. And with Aussie RSPCA approved chicken breast, try the new wraps and salads, all prepared to order. There's more to love at Macca's.
Introducing Voltaren Osteo Gel 12 Hourly. With just 2 applications a day, it gives you joint pain relief for the whole day and all night. Next time, why not try Voltaren Osteo Gel 12 Hourly?
Mika is a perfectionist when it comes to sculpting hedges. Just don't ask her for a short back and sides.
That's terrible.
It's amazing what you can't do. Task smarter.
Airtasker. Treat yourself at McCafe and we could treat you to free coffee for a year. Just buy any coffee on the My Macca's app and you could be one of 25 winners every day. Order on the My Macca's app for your chance to win.
At Tab, we're on a mission to deliver a streaming tsunami of racing and sport. Introducing Play Central, the all-new place to watch all 3 Sky Racing channels, the best in US sport, and place a bet while you watch. And the drone delivery? Yeah, it's a bit much. Play Central, new on your Tab app. Tab, long may we play.
Welcome back to our special coverage of the flood crisis. Despite all the warnings from the SES, some drivers have been putting themselves and others in danger by driving through heavy floodwaters. I'm joined now by State Emergency Services Assistant Commissioner Nicole Hogan. Nicole, this has got to be so frustrating. It's really wasting the time of rescue workers, isn't it?
We do urge people not to actually travel through flood waters. It does actually put at risk our rescue teams. And if you do see flooded water over roads, please take an alternate route.
So the rain, it just keeps on coming tonight. Right now, which areas are you most concerned about?
We're monitoring a number of areas across the east coast of New South Wales. So obviously we're looking and monitoring in the Greater Sydney area, in particular focus in the Hawkesbury and Nepean Valley, and also in the mid-north coast.
How does this compare to other situations like this that you've experienced?
This is a significant weather event. I've experienced a number of weather events like this. However, this one has a number of different weather systems formulating in it, including now incorporating a trough that's coming across from Western New South Wales.
Can you tell me how many people have been asked to evacuate in New South Wales so far?
We've had over 18,000 people asked to evacuate, and we've also got another 17,000 people who are under evacuation warning at the moment. We do urge people who are requested to evacuate within the timeframes, and also those communities who are under evacuation warning to please be prepared should you require to evacuate.
Are you anticipating that it will get worse and you will need to have more people evacuated from their homes?
There may be some more people evacuated from their homes in low-lying areas, and we are also monitoring the situation out west. But at this stage, we've got a number of warnings out, so we just ask people to remain vigilant, look at their surroundings, and if they feel unsafe, to evacuate.
So how do you make that decision? If you're under an evacuation warning, when do you work out when it's safe to leave? Because I guess if you stay too long, there's a chance that you'll get trapped and you won't be able to get out.
That's it. So for us, we have a number of intelligence, I suppose, that we've gathered over a long history, and so we have an understanding and work through our flood plans to have a look at when the best time is to issue an evacuation order. For people who in the community, if you are feeling that you need to get out, we then would urge you to get out. Your safety is of utmost importance, so most certainly please listen to the advice of emergency services, but also if you have family and friends that you can stay with outside of the impacted flooded areas, then please do that.
Okay, well, thanks so much for your time tonight, Nicole. I know it's been a busy day for all of you in the SES.
Thank you.
Disaster relief packages are being offered immediately to those in flood-affected communities in New South Wales. Network Finance Editor Gemma Acton joins me now. Gemma, what financial help is being offered and who's eligible?
Right, so this is coming from the government and it's $1,000 for every adult who's affected and $400 for every child within certain areas. So there are 34 local government areas which have been selected so far, but of course this is a moving target, so it's advisable to keep checking up. It's been run by Services Australia and there's information on their website about which local government areas are included. Now beyond that, there's also help from the banks. The major 4 banks have also extended various types of support. They've said to their customers, come and talk to us. It'll be on a case-by-case situation, but some of the measures include temporary reductions in interest rates or temporary deferrals of loan or credit card repayments. And thirdly, you might not be ready to lodge your insurance claim yet, but still contact your insurer as soon as possible because they do have emergency funds and temporary accommodation should you need it.
So if you feel as though you're eligible, how do you reach out for help?
All of these places have hotlines. The best place to go is just check on the website, look at what the hotline is. Services Australia is the one for the government payouts. The banks, of course, you can go into a branch or check their websites as well. The Insurance Council of Australia has its own hotline. So these are dedicated hotlines which respond instantly. If you're doing the government payouts, that can be organised straight away on the phone if you are eligible. They can sort that payment out there and then if you give them the correct details. Now, I really hate to bring this up because it's such a miserable thing to say, but be really careful about what they call disaster chasers. Now, these are people who target areas that have been hit by some sort of natural disaster, turn up on vulnerable people's doorsteps and start offering help, but often the help isn't genuine. People are looking to scam you, rip you off, charge you money for things that they never intend to fix. So while you are no doubt feeling very vulnerable and scared and confused at this point, just try and have your wits about you and just check for credentials. And if someone seems a bit dodgy, just ring for help for the Insurance Council.
Just hard to believe that anyone would do that, but very good advice. Now, you're coming back later tonight to talk to us about some pretty remarkable figures about insurance claims.
Yes. Now, floods, people don't always realise that floods are actually one of the more damaging natural disasters. They can just cause so much insidious damage. So we've taken a look at some of the numbers in recent years from some floods and looked at where the claims have got up to so far this evening.
OK, thanks so much, Gem.
Thanks, Ange.
In the flood zone as the Hawkesbury River continues to rise tonight, and amid all the day's damage and destruction, this truckie's heartwarming gesture. That's next on the latest from 7 News.
Next up,
The biggest action show on television is 911.
There's someone else down here.
Next up on 7.
Broken down, eh, Keith? Oh dear. Some insurers don't offer free roadside assist for a year, but Amy does, with a new Amy Comprehensive Car Insurance Policy. Does your insurer offer this? Amy does.
Put the pedal to the metal with Optus 5G. It isn't just fast, it's the fastest 5G in Sydney. It starts with yes.
The Daily Telegraph is pumped for NRL 2021. We'll be your eyes and ears day and night to get you behind the play for just $1 for the first 28 days with 24/7 full digital access. Search Daily Telegraph offer.
Treat yourself at McCafe and we could treat you to free coffee for a year. Just buy any coffee on the My Macca's app and you could be one of 25 winners every day. Order on the My Macca's app for your chance to win.
Nothing says I love you like Aldi's versatile Aussie chicken drumsticks.
You shouldn't have.
Now just $5.99 for a whopping 2-kilo pack. Aldi, good, different.
For a limited time, get the LDV T60 4x4 diesel auto for the price of the manual. The LDV T60 has everything you want in a ute from just $28,990. And right now, get a free auto upgrade. Visit your LDV dealer today.
Try new Red Rock deli-style crackers.
Bowel cancer is Australia's second biggest cancer killer, but you can help us change that. We're sending out millions of these bowel cancer screening kits. Because if detected early, this hidden killer can be successfully treated in more than 90% of cases. There's a lot we can do if you do the test.
Let's cross back now to Robert Avadia, who's standing by in Windsor. Rob, the Hawkesbury River isn't rising as quickly as it had been, but authorities are still worried.
Yeah, they are worried because of the unknown, and that is specifically the Warragamba Dam. The catchment area leading into Warragamba is absolutely huge. It extends as far south as Goulburn. So you're looking at the rain from the past few days still yet to even make it into the dam before it comes over the dam. I learned today that it takes 16 hours for the water to reach here in the Hawkesbury just from the Nepean. So you can imagine how long it takes for the water to tumble from as far south as Goulburn into Warragamba too. So it is the fear of the unknown. The good news at least is that the peak here is expected to be a touch under 13 metres. Most of the homes here are 14 metres above sea level, so it won't quite reach those homes, at least for the moment, but authorities don't know what to expect, and that has prompted those anticipatory claims of a once-in-a-50-year event. So that will bear out over the next few days, and we will see what we see. In terms of other things taking place tomorrow, there are 194 schools that will be closed across New South Wales, specifically because of the weather and flooding. For all of those details, you can go to the 7 News website, 7news.com.au.
I guess, Rob, also the concern about what Warragamba Dam will do is that, as you say, where you are and where you've been today, residents there are quite used to the flood risk, but there are so many new housing developments that have sprung up near these floodplains that I guess wouldn't be used to flooding of any great nature.
They wouldn't be used to the sight of it for sure, Ange, but you can rest assured that anybody building around here is certainly aware of the dangers. So that 14-metre level you would think would be a mandatory minimum to be at a safe level. The surge was expected yesterday to be 15 metres high, and that could have impacted hundreds of homes here. So people here are used to it. They're used to it around Pitt Town, around other flood areas. Richmond not far from here too, just on the other side of this bridge, in fact. So, you know, it is a way of life, and it is a risk you take when you do build here.
guess so. OK, thanks so much, Robert Vardia, for your time tonight. And the crisis in the Hawkesbury is bringing out the best in people. We spotted this beer truck driver heading in through the floodwaters. He dropped off his load, emptied the truck and has offered help to residents of Pitt Town on the Hawkesbury, taking their valuables to higher ground if they need to evacuate. Nice work. What a good bloke. The latest from 7 News will be back at 11:30 p.m. with all of the developments around the flooding crisis and tonight's other news, including NRL star Jared Haynes' sexual assault conviction. I hope you can join me then. I'm Angela Cox. I'll see you soon.